Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. I'm here with Rob Hunter. How you doing, Rob? It's been a while since we talked.
I know. I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you last time. You were like, we like the hour went by in 5 minutes.
I know. It always, talking about comic books, dude. I love comic books. It's easy to talk about comic books.
Why do people want to talk about other things like politics or anything?
You know, I have a channel where I talk about that just because I'm worried about people dying. But I personally would rather just talk about comic books.
Yeah. You know? I don't want to talk about people dying. I want to talk about Superman, Blue Beetle, or Death Raider. Let's talk about Death Raider. How's everything with Death Raider?
People dying.
I got to show off my Ralph Crandon thermos. For some reason, I didn't finish my coffee today, and it's too good.
Death Raider is now on Fund My Comic. And it really, the closeout of Death Raider 1 was a big push. It was a big push, but it was a hurry push. So when I went to the printer to print off my books, I realized to get the price point I wanted, I was going to have to print more books than I actually sold. And for some of the covers that I did, because I did a bunch of different covers, I would have to print a lot more covers than I sold. Otherwise, I was going to be paying $22 a book.
Oh, no.
Yes. So that's crisis mode. So I'm like, well, I'm getting on Fund My. The stuff is at the printer, but I'm like, I do not want to have thousands and thousands and thousands of books in inventory. One, I can't afford to carry that type of inventory.
Right.
Two, I don't have the space. And three, Fund My Comic. Let's try to sell some of those books as they start showing up from the printer. Otherwise, I'm in big trouble.
Yeah, I think I backed while we were talking.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm easy. I'm a soft touch. The hobos would have a mark on my mailbox. We got Zach down here with the drive-by blessing. How you doing? And I got to do my duty and remind everybody that my comic is still on Fund My Comic, and I'm hoping to launch, as I say, sooner rather than later. Hey, Maromi. Heroic Tales #2. Big plans. It all depends on how Heroic Tales 2 campaign goes, and we'll announce a bunch of plans. And Rob Hunter says, "Hail chat. How's everybody? Yeah. So what's going on? Are you in the States? You in Canada? Where are you?
I live in Florida.
Oh, you live in Florida. That's kind of like the United States.
It's kind of. Well, it's funny. Florida is where everybody goes when they retire with their fat city pensions. Right. So we get Northerners from everywhere because they realized, oh, my money will go a lot farther if I move to Florida. So especially with no state income tax, everybody moves here. It's I only know a few people who actually grew up in Florida. Most of us, we all moved to Florida for a better life.
I can't stand the humidity. But I don't know.
The humidity. Well, when I was younger, the only time I would go outside was to go out on dates or go to the grocery store. So think about it. Apartment to air conditioned car to air conditioned restaurant / air conditioned grocery store, back to my car, back to my apartment. Now, when I'm doing yard work in the summertime, I got a health meter above my head going, and it's just dropping like a video game character.
You grew up in Florida then?
No, I grew up in New York State.
Oh, okay. That's why I'm in. Where in New York?
Western New York with all the poor people.
Oh, okay.
Cow country, where the dairy farmers keep trying to scratch out a living.
It's funny that you said that, because when you say New York, people think of the 5 boroughs, New York City, or maybe Long Island. But everybody forgets that 90% of New York is farmers and hillbillies.
Yes. And poor people. Yeah. Lots of poor people.
Once you go past where the X-Men live over there in Westchester, it's just moo cows everywhere you go. They got more in common with like Tennessee and than New York City. It's really, yeah. There's guys up there that are like, I ain't never been to the city. I ain't never going to the city. Yeah, they're proud of it. And you know what? I'm getting, the older I get, the more I'm like, I ain't going to the city. If I Queens, I saw a thing on Twitter the other day. They showed like a long, windy road, and it said, "Will you drive down this road at 2:00 in the morning for $1 million?" I'm like, dude, that's like going to my house. Like,
I know.
You guys got to get out of New York City and California. You know, that's like 90% of the rest of the country.
That I hate those stupid Twitter. They're such bullshit. Yeah, I'm just like, F you. Who's not gonna? Even if you told me at the end of the road there's guys with guns, I'm like, well, that's fine because I've got guns. For $1? Hell yeah, I'm driving right down that road as fast.
Yeah, I don't have to brake, right? I mean, there's nothing in there's nothing in this rule that says I have to brake.
Yeah, and you know, one of the first things the military guys teach you is your car is a weapon, and you don't get out of your car unless you have to. Right. So you just keep driving. When your car dies, that's when you get out and you start shooting.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Don't. The cops will go easier on you if you run them over or if you pull over and shoot. You know. Yeah.
They'll just be like, yeah, we can see why you ran them over.
Yeah. Look at these freaks. Yeah.
Look at, they all had guns, and look at the bullet holes in my car. They were shooting at me. Were they shooting at you because you're driving at them at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour? I don't know. This is a scenario.
If DeSantis gets rid of property taxes, though, that might overcome my aversion to the humidity. You know, if I could sell my house in New York, buy a small house in Florida with no freaking property tax, you know.
I know. Yeah. Property tax is where I live in a nice neighborhood. It's property tax is brutal. You're just like, I will get the property taxes, and it's rolled up in our mortgage. So we, right. You know, it's not like we're paying a big chunk at the end of the year. And I'll look at them because I like to be mad. And I asked my wife, I go, do you want to look at these property taxes? And she goes, absolutely not. I go, do you want to know how much of our property tax goes to schools and we have no kids? She goes, absolutely not. So,
you know what? I have no kids either. But what gets me mad is it's not like the kids graduate high school and they can make change at McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like, I was a public school teacher. I will tell you, every teacher in my school was an F up. They all said the same thing: get home at 3:00, and I have the summers off.
Yeah. You know? Mm-hmm. And here's the deal. Yes, most of us went to public schools. Well, right. Then give me a bill. Don't tell me that now for the rest of my life I have to pay property tax, and a large chunk of it goes to the school system. Well, how's that work out? That doesn't sound like America. That sounds like another country. Well, that sounds like a communist country.
That's my mom sat me down one day. You know, we had 7 kids. And she goes, John, for 12 years I had kids in school. You know, by the time the first one was graduated, she goes, it was 12 years kids in school. She goes, I was paying $10,000 a year in property taxes. But she goes, but I've been living in this house for 35 years. So that's you know, 10,000 times 35, that's $350,000. She goes, yeah. I could have sent you all to private school.
Exactly.
For less than $350,000.
What a racket. What a racket.
In the 70s when she explained this to me, you know what I mean? So God knows the numbers today. So she's like, you know, it was funny because my mother was a Republican, my father was a Democrat. So, you know, we would hear both sides of the argument all the time, you know. And I was like, my mother was just such a realist. It said that. Yeah, she goes, because we went to the supermarket and we got wrong change. And she was just like, you know, and it was like a girl that we knew that I went to school with. And she's like right in front of us. She's just like, I wouldn't have paid $350,000. I wouldn't have mind if this girl could make proper change. Like, you know, you think I say things. My mom was mean.
It's, I'm a pragmatist, and, you know, a pragmatic. And, I just, I don't expect, and I actually usually give people the benefit of the doubt. But dude, I'm amazed. I'm amazed how dumb so many normal people are. I'm amazed when I do multiplication on a live stream and I get people blanking out on me. And I'm like, I know we're artists, but there's certain things we all should know. You know, that's kind of how I feel. So.
I have a cousin who's a school teacher, and it's like every 2 weeks she's like in a hammock, with the margarita. Toughest job in the world. I was like, oh really? try being an electrician at the airport at 5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
In ice water up to your knees. You know what I mean? And I don't have summers off. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, it's really hard. Really hard. Yeah. Every 3 weeks you're off in your hammock.
Yeah. My
I had to
sister,
break my neck to get time off.
my sister is a school teacher. So, but something's got to change. We still teach our kids. Our public school system was set up for factory workers.
Right.
You got to be there on time, walk in line, listen to what the teacher says. Our school system and our education system is still set up to make good little factory workers. Unfortunately, America doesn't have factory workers. So we create all these kids without a real purpose. And you see what happens. They end up comic book artists.
But that wouldn't be bad because then they would be inside out of my way. They'd be inside drawing all day.
No, there's too many of us as it is. We don't need more of them.
Like, yeah, then I could hire you guys cheaper. There you go.
Can't pay the bills as it is. I don't need more competition.
I don't know. I just something's got to change. The school system is wacky. But like I said, the property taxes. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, when I got this house, it was $1,700 a month in New York. I got it during the middle of COVID. I just got the bank gave me 2.2 mortgage rate. You know what I mean? It was the perfect. People were just like, oh my God, you got the perfect. Literally like 4 weeks later, people were complaining that mortgage. I just snuck in at the time. But
yes. So
for a year, I was paying $1,700 a month. But then the property taxes changed and it was up to $2,200 a month.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Where's that extra $500? Because that $1,700 included the mortgage, the property taxes. What changed? I don't understand. And it went up to like $2,500 a month. It's gone. But I'm like, dude, who's the bad guy here? The evil banks that gave me a 2.2 mortgage rate, or the benevolent government that charges me for schools? And you don't want to send your kids where I live. Like I didn't even check the school system because I don't have kids. Like, if it's a bad neighborhood, I'll just shoot people. I don't care if I don't have kids. So I don't know.
It's well, you see where that money goes,
right?
Doge is showing us where all that money goes,
right?
I think it's funny because people go, yeah, look like Trump last night. Yeah, Trump. Look, he's bragging about he's putting all these lists up of like, I mean, he was Mr. List saying 100 million here, 200 million here, blah blah blah. I'm afraid that for every person who goes, yeah, there's two people who go, why am I paying taxes? Why am I part of this country? Why am I doing all these things if my government is pissing because just because you say you found all these losses, all this money, there's going to be a bunch of people who go, yeah, I'm done with your system. Yeah, I see exactly how corrupt it is. And they're going to, we already see Gen Zers. They want to travel. They like eating out. They don't want to own a car. They don't want to own a house. They want to live in a tiny little house, or they want to live in an apartment. They do gig jobs. They don't want an office job. You see that Gen Zers, because of are adapting to our society, and they're checking out of a lot of things that were kind of what everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid that that's the next step. The next step is people going, like,
yeah. I'm 56. I'm looking at retirement. I got to go down and crunch the numbers. See, like really realistic. I just got to see if I got to be 20 years in my job to get medical for life, and I think I passed that already. I forget.
Oh, so, nice.
If I could do that and then figure out what the percent, because the earlier you retire, the less you.
The less of the actual money that's promised.
I could do this YouTube from Alabama if that's cheap.
I learned long ago that working in comic books, I'd never retire. Unfortunately, that's
I want to retire. Well, I don't want to jump in the hole in the 5 degrees Fahrenheit in the ice water anymore. And then I don't know if you know, in July it was 103 degrees. I passed out and broke my neck. You know what I mean?
Oh, I knew you broke your neck. I didn't know the
Yeah,
how it happened.
it was just so hot that it's so hot, and then I have a coffee addiction, so I blame myself. I woke up, I drank coffee, didn't get
Oh,
any water.
dehydrated? Did you get
Yeah, and
dehydrated?
then I was driving home, and all of a sudden,
Uh,
right into a tree, boom, ruined that. I love that car. It was
oh,
like the only
that
car that was
sucks.
reliable.
That sucks.
So it's just like the summers try to kill me, and the winters just make me the angriest person in the world. So all right, so I'll retire and write comic books at a loss.
Hey, I wish I could do that. I wish I could work at a loss too.
Yeah, I'll hire you to draw comics and take a loss. Why not? At least they'll look good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So speaking of comics, do you want to bring up your stuff, or do you want me to bring it up?
Yeah, I can present it.
Okay.
All right. It's
So
kind of
while
funny.
you're bringing it up, let's check out some of these comments over here.
Yeah.
We have
your screen.
We have 5 administrators for every teacher. Yeah, I remember our school. We got like $100,000 grant when I was in public school. Guess what they bought? Office furniture for the principal, vice principal, school psychologist. Nothing. I had a classroom with no blackboards or anything like that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Hey, am I sharing it?
Yeah, I was just talking. Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't mean to cut you off. So here, what this is this is a book I worked on last year, and actually this really subsidized finishing Death Rider 1 by working on this with T.E. Butcher, and he's written a bunch of these Armored Warrior Panzerter books, and he wanted to do a graphic novel, and this is the first of the graphic novels. So I drew it. It's 48 pages.
That is awesome. That image right there. It looks so good. It looks like if you told me that was a real mech someplace that the government has, and you snuck a photograph, you know what I mean? That looks amazing.
Well, dude, I've looked at the artwork that I did in this book, and because I was doing it as I was finishing Death Raider, some of this work is my latest work. Like the absolute, you'll see like the latest Death Raider work I have. It's on a cover, but besides that cover, this is some of my latest work. Was the stuff I did in this book, Riders War, Panzerter Armored. What's it? The title's actually Riders War. Okay. But then it's Armored Warrior Panzerter Riders War. Okay. So that's the title of the book, is actually Armored Warrior Panzerter. So that's a long title.
Is this a series of books or is
yes, this is a series of book, and this is the first adapted to a comic book.
Oh, this looks awesome. This apropos of nothing, but I backed a mech miniatures game like 6 years ago. We complained about comic books being late,
Oh no!
But try back at board games, ladies and gentlemen. I'll get a board game like, oh wow, I backed this like 8 years ago. Like,
oh wow. Well, is that because this stuff is coming from China? All the
yeah. I mean, it comes from China. As complicated as it is to make a comic book, you got to get all these mech pieces. But I just got it like 3 days ago, and apropos of nothing. Yeah, I'm just talking out of my ass because I drank too much coffee. It looks like a tie-in for a video game. Yeah, that's why I thought it's so cool looking. Like, I love your art. Here, I'm gonna make it even bigger.
All right, cool. Well, to be honest, when I was working on my art style, when I realized inking was kind of a dead end gig, I wanted to do like a Top Cow style over gray marker illustration type stuff. That's kind of what, and I thought, to be honest, I thought, I could do comic book stuff and I could do video game concept stuff if I can work on my photorealistic approach. And so far, it's all comic book stuff. No one's paid me big bucks to do video game concept stuff yet. So, but I'm having a blast doing the artwork. The artwork, dude, this book was so much fun. I finished, when did I finish the last page?
You like doing, technology and everything like that.
I do. Even as an inker, a buddy of mine at CrossGen said, hey, you would be perfect to do like this gritty sci-fi type comic book. And it's ironic that later in my career, I'm doing pencils, inks, and now marker. But Death Raider is a gritty sci-fi type comic book, and so is this. This is a gritty sci-fi comic book. So that my buddy Jeff Johnson was completely right. He thought just my approach to things, really gritty sci-fi.
Is this mech for mech or mech versus monsters?
No, this is mech versus mech. I don't know. I'm not, obviously I worked on the comic book for 48 pages. It really is. It's one world of that has mechs against another world, and it's the Martians against the humans. The humans actually are attacking the Martians, but they have mechs. They have some tanks. They have jets, things like that. But one of their main armored weapons is
Do
mechs.
they have the Martian tripods like War of the Worlds?
No. In fact, the Martians, this shot right here, where you see like the big dome disc heads, those are the Martian mechs.
Okay.
And then the guys with let's see, this guy's actually a Martian.
Okay, so what did we colonize Mars?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah. So everybody's human in it, and this just happens to be that you know how it is.
Yeah.
Wherever we go, we would eventually fight each other. So, and that's the concept of the book is the human Martians fighting Earth.
Earth Martians.
Well, no, Mars. Wait, I did say that wrong, but it's human Martians fighting Earth humans.
Right.
There we go. So the main characters, it's Ryder. This is this guy. He's a Martian, and this guy is a human. No, I mixed that. Okay, I know for sure he's a Martian, but I mixed it up. The humans have the disc mechs. Okay. So this is why I asked if the writer would be coming along, and he said that he couldn't make this one. And I said, dude, it's a comic book. You got to do more comic book. So that's why I'm like, well, I worked on the book. I'll do a poor job of explaining the story, and then I'll show off the artwork that I did, and at least we'll get it in front of some comic book people eyeballs, because he's been doing it for most of his live streams that he's done to promote the project. It's in front of people who read books, because this was all books first.
Yeah, those fancy people that don't.
Yes, they reading with no pictures,
with a pinky out like that.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Books without pictures, I don't get it.
But here's a big shot. It's
gorgeous.
Ryder's here in the center. Blake is really in shadow, smaller, and then obviously the two main types of mechs, the Martian mech versus the human mech. And I thought it was pretty cool, because when he first started explaining the story to me and the mech designs, I assumed, the mechs we see in the movies, the giant, the size of buildings type mechs. Yeah. And he's like, no. These are like 5-6 times the height of a human. But he's making it a little more realistic to have a big robot, but not a gigantic Godzilla type robot.
Oh, I see. So there's still only one human pilot. You don't need like a whole crew.
Yep. Yeah. One guy per mech. And these mechs are like the height of a house.
Okay. So I don't know if you ever read Starship Troopers, the book, not the movie, because
I heard that there's cool mechs in the book, right?
Well, they wear armor that makes them maybe like 9 feet tall, and they could jump and stuff like that. So it's like, I picture that would be like the first step. Then these are the second step. And then those giant kaiju size mech would be the final form,
exactly. Like the mech set would be, you drop those in first to take out a city and stuff.
Marcus wants to know, this is on Kickstarter, right?
Yes, this is on Kickstarter. This is a Kickstarter book.
Yeah, he's got 2 links right now. One is Fund My Comic for Death Raider, and that's right here. We'll talk about that in a bit. But this is on Kickstarter right now. This is the mech book, Writer's War. I forget the whole long super title.
Yeah. Wait, the title is, let's go back. It's Armored Warrior Panzerter Writer's War.
There you go.
But if you type in Writers War, it comes up. Like that's how I always find it. Is I go to Kickstarter and then I type in Writers War.
Why Writers War?
Because that's the main guy. That's the
Oh,
main guy,
writer.
right? Yeah, this guy. This guy he's the main dude.
Okay. Okay.
We do see the story perspective from Blake, but there is a lot more pages about Ryder. Ryder is the hero.
Oh, Ryder. Ryder.
Reiter.
Okay, I'm thinking writer like an author.
I know. It's a little confusing when you're trying to.
Okay. Now it makes sense. Now that it makes sense, I'll remember it.
Yeah. No, he's the hero of the story.
Okay, cool. And this is all black and white. You're one of the few artists that like it's almost a shame to color your stuff. I love this black and white. What do you say?
Thank you.
Gray tones, like I don't pretend to know the
my approach is I do loose pencils on the computer, working out perspective and shit like that and layouts. Then I print it off on paper. Then I do type pencils, then I do gray marker, and then I do ink over top. And especially as I learned, like, hey, you can't spend a week on one page. Now it's, I try to do 2 to 3 pages a week. I can be a little bit looser with the gray marker. I still want to give it that kind of photographic sense. And not every panel, but certain panels, I try to be photorealistic. The inks, when I go in and ink it, I can really tighten up. It ends up really tweaking and focusing the artwork.
Yeah, this looks amazing. This looks like photorealistic,
Thank you.
Yeah, this looks like, it could have been like movie props that you just like,
Well, this was a cover, so I did spend longer on this than normal. I probably did spend, 3 to 4 days just on this piece.
Yeah, I was going to ask you
because it was a cover. Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. Sometimes I'm just in awe of people's ability to draw. Like it's just so cool. Especially look at that. You know what it reminds me of? Like when you like I'll read. Why can't now these authors' names are blanking out of. But what's the guy's name who wrote like an occurrence at Owl Creek? Like from the 1800s, and then they'll have like a wood carving next to it. Like that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, this guy carved that in wood backwards so that it would, print properly. I'm just amazed at people. Sometimes people just have such a cool time. Like, look at this.
Oh, well, yeah, that old school artwork of the engravings.
Yeah,
that stuff is where it's all different gray tones and gray shading. And then there's a few American artists who, went into commercial art with that type of style from the engraver style. And there you go. Yeah, you could find it. That's kind of funny. That's my first stuff on Kickstarter because I haven't put Death Raider on Kickstarter yet.
What was that? That was Indiegogo, right?
My Death Raider was first on Indiegogo, and now it's on Fund My Comic.
Right.
I'm using everything, dude. I'm using obviously pencil in the beginning, then it's the gray Copic markers. I thin my markers though. I thin them out big time because a lot of my stuff I'm blending the shit out of it. And then I'm using brush, and I'm using pen nib, and I'm using technical pens.
When you say you thin your markers, what do you mean by that?
The gray markers, I thin them out. You can add chemicals. I add chemicals. You pop the marker, and I literally will add a chemical to one so it lasts a little bit longer, but it also lightens it.
I thought you literally meant like you were cutting the top to make
no, I do that too.
Oh, there you go.
Dude, I have a for some of my Death Raider merch, I have a laser engraver. Well, I found out that if I use the laser engraver on cardstock, I can make the coolest fucking cardboard templates for my markers. Dude, I can do almost any texture now with those goddamn markers because I can make the templates off the computer in Photoshop now. And I have the laser engraver just laser burn those templates. And I just pop it out pieces and going, holy shit. This just made my job when it came to making templates, made my job like 10 times easier. And I could do way more complicated textures now.
Cool. That is awesome.
Yeah, it's all technique. It's all, a lot of it's technique. A lot of it's like, well, what did you do here? Like I was talking to a last year at MegaCon when I was showing my work around. They're like, how did you do this? I'm coming up to my peers that I worked with and inked at DC Comics and stuff. They're like, how did you do this? I'm like, with a marker. They're like, no way, you didn't use a marker on this. I'm like, I did. I used a marker on this, but I custom made templates. And they're like, what? They just look at me like, why would you do that? Why would you spend so much time? And I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to set myself apart from everybody else. I mean, there's some really amazing artists that I now, in this field, in this shrinking field, I have to compete with. Yeah. And it's kind of unfair. But if I want to stay in comic books, I have to do whatever I can to compete with them. So I'm trying.
So, yeah. You were saying before that you had to print extra of Death Raider. So did you get them yet? Do you physically have them yet? Or
No. In fact, I'm still waiting. The printer told me last time I talked to him by email, they said they're getting ready to put my stuff on the schedule for printing. So,
do you know what company, if you don't mind? I'm just curious. I use Comics.
No, I don't want to talk about it because a buddy of mine is really going above and beyond who works there.
Okay,
to help me out. Like he literally is letting me. Like I told him, why I'm doing what I'm doing and the overprinting, and he actually said because it was the Brett Booth cover books that sold a lot less than I expected, but they also were only on sale for like 2 weeks. He said, dude, he goes, I'll let you know right now, for you, it's not set in stone. If you sell a bunch of those books and you want to print more of those than you've already asked for, he goes, we'll change it for you. We'll up your order. So obviously when I get put on the schedule, that's it though. Once I'm on the print schedule, it's you know.
Like you say, you're in Florida. There's a bunch of Comic Cons there. You could show up with those books and a table. They look remarkable.
Well, that's the problem. Comic book cons, I don't know if it's because I'm part of Comicsgate or because Comic Cons only want, if you're not a big name, they just want a check from you to pay for a table. And realistically, if I, go to any of the big cons, it's going to cost me $1,000. That cost me a $1,000 for the hotel, the $300 to $400 for the table. Yeah. That's a lot of books you have to sell just to make up for the $1,000 expense. So
people keep asking me, when are you going to go to a con with your book?
And you're like, what? I want to lose money.
Yeah. When?
I mean, honestly, I tell people if I tried to get into MegaCon this year, even before my book was printed, just so I could talk to fans about it. I like the guy who's in charge of handling the guests for MegaCon. He used to hook me up. Every year he would find a table for me. This year I had to keep bugging him and he kept telling me, I'll let you know. And then I would have to bug him again. And he would say, I'll let you know. So I get the feeling like, oh, the days of me getting a free table from MegaCon are probably over. Unfortunately. And that's the only way I would be able to do MegaCon because I think those tables are $350 or $400 a table.
Is that the one in Charlotte? Or?
No, that's the big one in Florida.
Okay,
that's the biggest one in Florida.
There's one that Marcus keeps inviting me to by his house. Is it in Atlanta?
Is Heroes Con?
Yeah, Heroes Con. Yeah.
Well, Heroes Con. Andy lives in Charlotte.
Yeah.
So he's always telling me to go to Heroes Con. It'll be, maybe I could get a table from them, but Heroes Con is all about getting lots of comic book guests, mostly comic book artists. So I'm be one of 150 comic book artists. So now that's big competition. Whenever I ask Andy how he did, he never says, oh, I did fantastic. I can't believe how much money I made. He always says I did okay. Because there's so much competition. If you're not Adam Hughes or Jim Lee, that's a lot of competition. There's a lot of really great artists all competing for the same dollars that the fans have in their pocket.
Yeah. I the last comic convention I went to was New York Comic Con, and my wife and I went, and I'm trying to think how long ago, but Carmine Infantino was there. You know, this guy's a living legend, sitting there at a table by himself, not one person talking to this whole. And my wife, she's got a thing for old timers, you know.
Yeah.
And she looks at, she goes, "Look at that old man over there." She goes, "I just want to hug him." I was like, "That's Carmine Infantino." So we went over and just talked. I just felt bad, you know what I mean? And then I look, and there's like Flavor of the Week's over here with Line Drawn the Blocks, and I'm like,
yes,
I don't mean to disrespect them, but this guy's, he was
comic books are like that, dude. It really is. It's flavor of the month. When I stopped going to, I was doing MegaCon, and I was doing the Miami show, the Miami Con, and at the Miami Con, I was having, that was when I was still going kind of for the fun of it. I would probably make $600-700, really not cover, you know, the 4 days it would take to do it. When if I could just, because I was, you know, working at DC and I had lots of work, but I still like going and just meeting the fans. I did the actual Miami Beach Comic Con, and the Flavor of the Month guy is there with his brand new whatever Spider-Man book it was, and he's never been busier. And I'm, you know, working on Green Lantern or something, going, man, I didn't have time to be here, but I thought it would be smart to go here just for whatever. And I probably spent half the time staring at the walls. And I'm just like, I'm not coming back. I can't do this. I can't do this anymore.
My older brother is into horror movies the way I'm into comics, and I'm trying to remember where we went, but it was one of the last appearances of George Romero, and that's oh my god, my brother's like, we're going.
Yeah.
So we drove up to the city and everything like that, and my brother's this 6'4" biker, scary, tattooed guy. You know, you would cross the street if my brother was walking down the street, you know. But he turned into a little kid. Just George Romero. And it's funny because George Romero's like, okay, what would you like autographed? And my brother went, like he couldn't talk.
That's awesome.
So I was like, but the point I'm trying to make is across from him was, I think the actor's name, Richard Daly, who played Major Healy on I Dream of Jeannie, sitting there by himself, you know, with like nobody at his booth. And I'm like, this is like the artist. It's like only fangirls who aren't selected. You know what I mean? Like I like if I go to I couldn't, I'd be so embarrassed. Yeah, I went all the way down to Heroes Con. I got a table and I sat there. You know, I can't doodle because I'm not an artist. You know, if you doodle and people can be like, "Oh, that guy's doing a commission," but what am I going to do? I'm just going to sit there. Like, you want to talk?
Yeah, I don't draw fast enough, unfortunately. So people are like, "Well, dude, you can afford it if you sketch the whole time." And you're just like, yeah, just what I want to do. I want to sketch in the shitty convention lights. I'll get raging headache and trying to, you know. Trying to draw and trying to do the sketch thing. Some guys, you know, dude, Dave Finch can literally draw Batman without looking at it, you know, and he's making Boku bucks, and he's not paying for his room, he's not paying for his flight, and he's making the bucks on this guy. He's working his ass off. I sat across from him at MegaCon one year, and he sketches the whole time he's at his table. He is drawing and signing comics and listening to fans, and that's work.
Yeah. Marcus says Billy Tucci does really well at cons, because Billy Tucci is probably the most charming person you've ever met in your life. I met him at a free comic book day, and I swear to God, it was like meeting Frank Sinatra. It's like, hey!
Billy.
Yeah,
if he was selling Cadillacs, he would have made twice as much money.
Yeah.
Billy's. It's like Todd McFarlane. An editor years ago, I said, "What's it like dealing with Todd McFarlane?" And the editor said, Kelly Corvisi said, "Todd is a businessman first who happens to draw comic books." And he goes, and that's every time you want to talk to Todd about doing something, that's how he approaches it.
Isn't that the famous story with Jack Kirby? Somebody asked him, "What do you do for a living?" And he says, "I sell comics." You know, you think Jack Kirby would say, "I draw comics." You know, no, I sell comics. That's my job. Yeah.
Moving units. Got to move those comic books because he
Move-
knows that his name and what he does is going to sell the comic book. Comic book companies have forgotten that. They've forgotten that they're trying to sell comic books.
You know what's funny is I every Wednesday, it's the highlight of my week. I have like an hour commute to work, and I listen to Ask Chuck Dixon. You know, every Wednesday morning. You know, and he said it this week. And he's absolutely right that he goes, when comic books first came out, it was guys in suits. You know, they didn't give a crap. They just needed to keep the press going.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Rob Hunter's stupid thing sold. Let's print more Rob Hunter. Oh, John Logbach's stupid thing selling this week. Forget Rob Hunter. Let's sell this. Matt
it was just a schedule. The printer had to keep rolling.
Right.
That big machine, that cylinder had to keep rolling with something. It didn't matter if it was comic books or cartoon strips or
they didn't give a
whatever
crap what it was, and they just looked at this is selling, this is not selling. He goes, and then somewhere along the way, the fans grew up and became the people who make the comic books, and just like, but I want Green Lantern to sell, and they even though the sales are going down, they're like, but I like Green Lantern. I'm just picking Green Lantern off the top. Nothing against Green Lantern, but you know, no. I don't want to do this kind of book. I don't like that kind of book. Yeah, but that kind of book will sell. But I don't like it. You know, and then he goes, and now we have phase 3 where they're just like, we want this to sell to the right people who don't exist yet. And then show up yet. You know, the Phantom Modern Order. But I never thought about it. Like Chuck Dixon, he's really good about explaining that. Like I had ideas about the comic book world that him and Mark Millar are very good at observing things and coming to a conclusion. I enjoy listening to them.
Yeah. Chuck has a theory on why the industry gave up on romance comics and war comics and Westerns. Right. And it has really nothing to do with money. They just wanted, the editors that were in charge wanted to focus on the superhero stuff.
Right. Because they were superhero fans.
Yeah, exactly. But they didn't, its sales didn't really support it, but they still gave up on the other stuff. Yeah. And now whenever they pitch little kid comics, they give them like 6 months. You're like, you need to give, if you want to actually have little kid comics that you can sell, you got to push that shit for 5 years.
Well, you got to get
with advertising.
But where are little kids going to wake up? The little kids aren't going to wake up and like, Daddy, drive me to a comic book store. Maybe they have a comic book I want.
No.
You got to get it like Scholastic. They really got, unfortunately,
they're not trying.
You know, when you were a little kid, when I was a little kid, your mom had to go get food for dinner, and then you're waiting at the checkout line, and there's chiclets and comic books right in front of your face. You know what I mean? Oh man, my mom, shut up, and she just gave me the chain.
Shut up.
You know what I mean? That's all it was. He was shut up. Like I remember many times. My grandfather lived. Talk about upstate New York. It was a 4-hour drive through cows to get to my grandfather's house.
Yes.
My father, his comic books. 7 kids. We're all just swapping comic books. And then my father's playing Frank Sinatra, and my mother's smoking a cigarette with the windows rolled up. That was the 70s.
Well, if you're a go-getter marketer, are you going to work in comic books, or are you going to go work for Facebook or TikTok or whatever? You're not going to work for comic books.
Yeah.
You're not going to get paid jack shit. Now, if you're a go-getter marketer, you going someplace else. You're going to go where the money is, and you're going to sell the F.
Right.
You're going to sell the F out of it, but you're not going to. Comic books always get whoever's left. And Chuck Dixon says that comic book companies do a very good job of running most of the good writers out of comic books. So all that's left is the really stubborn writers who really want to write comic books, and then a bunch of people who want to write for CW, but they can't get that job yet. So they fill in their schedules with comic books jobs.
Well, your boy Zach used to say, Richard C. Meyer over at Diversity Comics, that he goes, it's a lot of like, oh, comic books, that would be fun. Like they weren't interested in it, and it's like, oh, maybe that'll get me in the door for a Netflix pitch or something like that. I don't know but like Image Comics used to just be like, they should have just called it Pitch Comics for the past 10 years.
Yeah. I know lots of artists. The comic book work is their fill-in schedule. The video game companies, they tell them when they're going to need them to do concept work. So that's the diehard etched in stone. That's their schedule for the year because that's where all the money comes from. And then they just to stay busy, they do comic book work on the side.
Okay.
So
technology, video games have destroyed comics. Print media is dead because of it. I think the biggest problem, like I think, I don't know if kids even knew about comic books. I think they would get them.
it's you got to go digital and you got to have them almost free. Honestly, it's a joke. We've talked about this on many podcasts. We already have HBO. We already have Disney Plus. There's no reason that Marvel Comics, all of their comic books are on Disney Plus. There's no reason that DC Comics are on a Warner Brothers HBO Plus Max, where you get to see all of that. You get to read all of it for free. Maybe you want to have a special, a little bit of a special premium, but you read all the digital books, comic books for free. And if you want the trade paperbacks or you want the hardcovers or the toys or the statues, you go to the comic book store, or you follow the effing link off of your goddamn smart TV that says, hey, did you like that Spider-Man comic book? And you click on it. And not only can you order any of the books or the hardcovers, you can order the goddamn t-shirts, the toys. It's not rocket science, but nobody wants to do it because they know that one, there's going to be the initial investment, and two, you've completely killed what's left of the comic book stores, and that's cash they don't want to let it go of. But technology is telling us every year that our market is shrinking. Technology is telling us either you put these fucking things out for free or you go away. And we keep fighting it because the big boys keep fighting it.
2 years ago, I would have argued with you that you were wrong, but I'm living proof. Like I get Pandora and I play it at work. You know, and I'm like, oh, that's okay. Whatever. This band I just heard, so I make a station for that, and then I can't get up and always hit skip. So I'm like, that's a good song. About the fourth time I hear it, I'm like, what is it? Oh, okay. And then I bought more records in the past 2 years because I'm listening to a free app on my phone.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Now, unfortunately for the recording artists, that when all of those Apple Music and all of those companies were forming, the record companies created a partnership with them. So they get a piece of the company, and for it to be viable, they fucked over all of their clients. So their clients get almost nothing when we listen to the song on a subscription Pandora basis. So I don't know what that would mean for comic book people. Maybe we would all be salary. You just put us all on salary, and the books are online. They're free, and then we get a royalty when those books, the trade paperbacks or the hardcovers sell.
We're getting a lot of comments here, but I want to go down this quick. This is like a joke and it's not even a joke. I said this one day, but like Matt Bauer was on the chat, and I said, if I was in charge of hiring at Marvel, and Rob Hunter sits down in front of me and says, I want to edit the X-Men, my first question is, okay, show me your comic collection.
Yeah, exactly. Do you actually have any of the X-Men comics?
Show me a comic collection. And you're like, and I don't want to see like your comicsology. I want to see a photograph of a beat up long box with comics, all over the place, well loved. So that's always the first question, and then let's talk about your favorite runs, stuff like that. Manga or comics, that's me. A lot of storyboards that I do comic book stuff. Yeah. And then
exactly.
That's half the problem. They're rehashing the same old characters, but we love Spider-Man, we love the Hulk, we love Iron Man. The problem is that I don't think these people of Marvel and DC love these characters because during the height of Robert Downey Jr. doing Iron Man movies, you walk into a comic book store, it's like, that's not Iron Man, it's a 14-year-old girl. 14-year-old
which is ridiculous. I would have killed people if I was in charge of that. I'd be like, we have a major fucking movie out right now, and the comic books don't resemble the movie in any way. I'm like, who the fuck am I firing first? And I'm going to beat them to death in front of the rest of you. It's insane what they don't do.
Right. And then like there was no comic books in the movie. Like when you walked out of Iron Man, there should have been Iron Man comic books. Just like the Batman 89 movie, there was Batman toys in the movie theater.
They don't use the leverage they have when they have the leverage. Now, do theaters want to sell comic books? No, absolutely not. They want to
Why
sell
not?
you.
The theaters aren't making any money. They're closing
Well,
down.
because they want to sell you $9 popcorn that costs them 30 cents to make.
Right. But if you could, I don't know, split.
No, they honestly, I've had this conversation with theater people. They don't want to sell. The last thing they want to sell that overpriced popcorn and soda and candy. That's it. Some of the theaters now sell you dinner, but they're not going to sell you merch. They're not going to all that other stuff.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a bad businessman, because to me, it's like, what's less troublesome? Like dealing with food. There's a lot of regulations. There's a lot of chance for people getting sick. People, oh, there's a hair in my food. Sell me a comic book. You know what I mean? Here's $6. Here's a comic book. You know, we take 3.
We just had a conversation. We're not going to sell comic books that way. We're going to sell them through Disney Plus and Max.
Right.
And we're gonna give it to you for free, and then we're gonna sell you the hardcovers and the trade paperbacks.
I don't have kids, but I got a lot of nieces and nephews. But they do still like books. Like you show a kid a Dogman, like I'm talking like a kindergartner or a first grader. You show a kid Dogman, they eat that shit up. And I know like that was but Dogman is comics. It's not traditional comics, but it's panels with word balloons and everything like that.
And can you imagine them being able to read that for free on a Saturday morning? Read all the comic books they want off their television, their giant screen TV. They'd love that.
Tim says kids choose video games because comic book creators are lazy. I don't know. Well, I would never call Rob lazy, but I would say the mainstream press, I don't know if they're lazy or if they just don't like comics. They're not businessmen. We already established that. And they don't respect the characters. Like, hey, Chris Hemsworth is now Thor. Every girl loves Chris Hemsworth. And then you go to a comic book store. It's like, no, it's a woman. And not only is she a woman, but she has cancer. Well, wow, that's what I want to read.
Well, look at a video game. A video game has a budget of what, between $30 million and $100 million. They always talk about they're overworked, but what they get paid for being overworked, comic book companies don't even come close to paying that. So what you see now, like at Marvel and DC, most of those artists, they're drawing it on the computer and they're probably doing 2 to 3 books or 2 to 3 pages a day. You can tell there's no texture. The blacks are just spotted in real fast. They have decided that they want to sit at home in their pajamas and draw comic books. But they learned either in college or whatever that you better do 3 pages a day because Marvel and DC aren't going to pay you very much. And so they've accepted that, like, hey, they get to work on Cable or whatever, some bland generic Spider-Man, and they rip out those pages and they don't think about it again. I mean, it's all digital. They're not even trying to sell the original artwork. So they have once the pages get emailed to the editor, they get a check. That's it.
Who said this? There's manga, there's video game. Like my nieces and nephews, they all got excited when I told them I was making a comic book. They're like, we love comics. And then they were like, mangas are comics, right? And I'm like, yeah, they're absolutely comics. They're different, but they're but they, like my niece now has her own kids and they go to the bookstores and buy manga for the kids. So I just think the main problem is Marvel and DC just suck.
They do. It's always half efforts. They'll try to get into a comic book store for 6 months, and if they lose money, they chop that. They won't. You have to, especially to go into new markets and hold those markets. You have to be ready to lose money, and you have to lose money year after year, knowing that you can keep pushing.
Right, they had an Aquaman movie and no Aquaman comic. Yeah,
exactly.
They keep rebooting. That when I went to that comic store and I met Billy Tucci, it was packed, and I started talking to some guy, and guy is like, "Hey, this is my daughter," and young girl, and I'm like, I felt weird talking to her, but she's 15 years old, and she was just like, "I love old comics. I don't like new comics," and I was like, "Why?" She goes, "Because if I get Hulk 273 and they referenced Hulk 262." I could figure out how many months ago that was. I know where to go. I could almost figure out how much it's going to cost unless it's the first appearance. She goes, but now like it's Hulk volume 6, number 2. I'm like, She goes, that doesn't tell me anything. It's I'm lost. It was so much easier when there was one number system from 1 to 600. So yeah, people get confused. They're doing everything possible wrong. Yeah, I agree that we don't need to see Spider-Man's origin again. We don't need to see Batman's mom dying in the alley anymore.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think, like, somebody mentioned vinyl. Vinyl's coming back. I bought more vinyl in the past 4 years than I bought in the past 20 years. I don't want to buy CDs anymore. I think people would be interested in comics, and I said this question to Mike Barron, and he just said, make better comics.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that there is so many good comics, especially in our indie online, whatever, crowdfunded. But the problem is marketing. I don't know how to market, obviously.
Well, you have your show.
Yeah. I mean, my comic, I shouldn't complain. I broke even on my first comics. The guys at work, they're like, dude, if I opened up a deli and I broke even in the first year, that's a success. Do you know how good that is to break even on your first venture? It's like, I never, and it shows you how good of a businessman, because I never even considered myself a businessman. I'm just a goofball who made a comic book. But like you said, you got to be a businessman. Those cheap, dumb games made for phone, via apps. Yeah. I don't know much about Billy Tucci at Cosmic Comic is Manhattan. Oh, there's a comic they sign all the time. Okay, they're all talking among themselves. I thought there was starting the slate clean and starting from scratch. That would work for a lot of people. Wouldn't work for me. I don't know. Like when DC started over with the New 52, I was done with DC. Haven't looked at a DC comic since. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's I know that they do that because of the economics, because the number one will sell, it'll spike in sales. The same whether they relaunch a new series, relaunch the books again and again. It's because they get that spike that carries the sales through to justify their expenditures. But every time they do that, they lose more of the older fans, and I don't think they are gaining every time they do that. I don't think you can keep doing that as a business if the amount of new fans you gain equal the amount of old fans you lose. But I think every time they do that, they aren't really gaining that many new fans, but they're losing a lot of old fans.
Yeah.
So but they keep doing it over and over again because they have no other options. When you're in the corporate field like that, you rise through the ranks by either taking risk and succeeding, or not taking a risk and waiting for your boss to take a risk and he fails and then he gets fired and then you get promoted. So what would you rather do? Would you just stay in the middle and just go to work every day and do whatever your boss says, and that as soon as your boss F's up, you'll replace them and then you just can keep climbing the ladder? I think too much of that is a Marvel and DC thing too.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to bring up, did I bring up the wrong thing? Yes, I did. I wanted to bring up Death Raider.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I backed this when you first came on. Like I said, I'm a soft touch. If there was still if I lived by the trains, it'd be hobos, not homos. Maybe there was.
Uh-oh, that's a real soft touch.
Yeah. Student of God's gonna clip me, and I'll be like,
yeah. So this is the second chance for Death Raider. It's it's the same book. The one thing I did to give the Fun My Comic some hype is there's the brand new cover.
Oh, cool.
But it's actually not the brand new cover. It's everybody who bought the black and white version of Death Raider #1 on the Indiegogo. I just said that I didn't release the cover. I said it was probably going to be like, originally it was just a black and white cover. Like literally it's black with the title. Well, I decided that that's kind of not cool. So I ended up doing a brand new cover. And if you scroll down, you'll see, if you keep scrolling, we could keep going because it has its own reward. There's the brand new cover right there.
Oh,
wait. Yeah. And that's no, that one. Yes. The one with the green title. And that's the brand new cover. So that's, that's the new artwork to kind of spur my fund my comic, the campaign. But that's Psy, and it's takes place a little bit after issue 1 of Death Rider takes place.
Cool. That is awesome. That is just gorgeous artwork.
Thank you.
Like I don't know, like it's been one of my pet peeves is I've been looking at old comics. Like I think people the oldens like myself, we've been getting more and more old back issues. And as I get to today in mainstream, I see less and less background details in comics. You know, and when I see your artwork, look at that. That's like draftsmanship. You know, like I can't help but compare this to like Creepy and Eerie, the old Warren magazines, you know. Like,
well, it's the new comic book is speed art. That's, you know, unfortunately it's speed art as fast as they can draw the figure, you know, draw the figure, I mean, you can look at it. There's almost no textures. I mean, they're drawing that stuff on the computer, and there's almost no. Oh, he's yelling at us because he can't see it better. Well, you know what? I can.
Can everybody else want me to make it bigger, or is it just you? Is the screen?
I will. Let's see. I always get confused when I have multiple screens up. I will download. You know, I download. Yeah, I already have this on my computer, so I shouldn't need to have to download it again. Let me just find it.
I'm just looking at all of your. I just love your art. I just love this. Like I said, this, like, I don't know. It's yes, I guess you do. You have the luxury of taking your time and making the details as good as you want. So I mean, maybe it's not fair to say that to these Marvel guys that are living 7 people in an apartment in Manhattan. You know what I mean? And they got
they're not working. No, they're not working out of Marvel. They're not working out of New York City. They're all foreigners working on the computer. They're all living in other countries, and Marvel uses them because they pay them probably half the rate that they would pay me. That's what it is. They found a bunch because as their sales dropped, labor is the most expensive part of producing a comic book. Yeah. So they went out and they found cheaper labor. So
yeah. It's same with cartoons. Like people.
Yes, exactly. It's just like cartoons. They did the same thing.
The art is embarrassing. What do they call it? The Cal Arts art? You know, is that the term? Is that Cal Arts Studio? I love this. This is the cover I backed. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, the tune-up cover. Yeah, like he's in his charging station.
Yeah, I love that. How long before you didn't get it printed yet? So what do you think? Like another month or two before we?
I have no idea. It just depends on the printer. I'm gonna have to bug him again and see where the schedule. I also know that a buddy of mine he's given me as much time as possible to sell as many copies as I can on Fund My Comic. So cool. If I want to bump the orders, so
cool. Yeah, I overprinted too because I was like just under a cusp for a better price. So guys, I got a long box over here full of extra Heroic Tales #1, all the covers, because economy of scale is a real thing.
Oh yeah, especially when it comes to printing comic books.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna. We've been talking for an hour, and then 8:30, I got a comic book team up with RJ and Rini from Rini Draws on the same channel. So, I literally got home from the chiropractor, sat down, and started talking. So I'm gonna have my dinner before the next talk. Is there anything that you want to say that I didn't give you a chance?
I'm going to just share that one cover super fast.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
It's taken me so long to do it.
I wish I had more time to talk. Literally, yeah.
Wait, present, share screen.
Yeah, you come back. You've never been on in like a year. I enjoy talking to you. You should come back more often.
All right, there. Can we see it? Can you see it now? Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Yeah. I'll make that big. That is gorgeous.
I literally was trying to select on screens that weren't real screens. They were StreamYard screens. Trying to get into Twitter, and I'm like, why can't I look at my profile on Twitter?
That is gorgeous. Like, look at all that detail. know. And do you draw all that background like with on your computer also?
No. All of that is by hand.
Wow.
No, I worked out the perspective. I worked out the perspective on the computer, but then that's marker, and then that's pen and ink.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's so that I have all the originals, to be honest, to sell. They're trying to figure out the dynamics of trying to make a living in the comic book industry. Selling the artwork is a big part of it. Anybody who doesn't sell the artwork, I don't know how they can make it unless they have one of the $250,000 campaigns. So
Renzo, the artist on my comic, he was like, "What do you prefer? Do you prefer that I draw it on pen and paper or computer?" I said, "I just like the art. Whatever you want to do is what you want to do. But like, I don't understand why you would if you could do it on pen and paper and then sell it. I said,
there's guys that could do it faster on the computer.
He said he could do it better on paper and pencil than his computer.
Then he should, because then he has artwork to sell.
I said the only thing I ask is, for now on, Renzo, do every cover and I'll buy every cover off you. I'll be the best customer. Matter of fact, he just sent me a big package of originals. I told him I'd jump off the sell for him. Yeah. But this is gorgeous. This is one of my complaints, is that you don't see backgrounds anymore. And then like I don't want to get like all like my clip art stuff like that, but like I'm starting to see like the same stuff in the backgrounds in different companies, because it must be like not public domain, but like I don't know, like a clip art.
No, it might be clip art. They literally might be pulling clip art off of online, or maybe off of specific commercial art websites and things like that. So they're all reusing the same stuff.
Yeah.
Especially if you're already drawing the figure on the computer, like they do the whole thing on the computer, then literally all they're doing is, importing the file, importing the image, and maybe they add a little bit to the image, or maybe they run the image through a filter. Now you can, we already saw it 10 years ago with all the colorists. The colorists would remember when all of a sudden all the skies looked so awesome, where they look like photorealistic skies.
Yeah.
That's because the colorist would import a photo of a sky that fit the panel, and then just change the color a little, change the saturation or whatever, and go, boom, there's a sky. And you'd be like, wow, that sky looks photorealistic. It's because it's a photo. They just added more blue or more green to it.
Make it look like a comic book.
Yeah. Make it fit. Make it fit the panels. Like if there's a lot of green in the panels or whatever. And they would use. I watched the guys at CrossGen, the colorists at CrossGen. When it came to coloring someone's face, they would use photo reference to help color the face, so it made it more realistic too. So,
I forgot you worked at CrossGen. That was like the poorest point of my existence was when CrossGen came out, and I like purposely is like I can't get this. and now I'm going back and buying all the CrossGen. They're so good. What a shame that company was so good.
Their business model was wrong. They right from the beginning, their business model was they could lose $2 million a year and they could exist forever. But the boss lost half of his wealth because of the stock market, and he could no longer lose $2 million a year forever. So they expanded, thinking, oh, well, if our books sell this much, if we make the line bigger, then we'll eventually become profitable, because they were already top heavy with management and stuff. So they literally started producing more books to rationalize what their management and everybody was getting paid. All their office support.
Well, you're in Florida. Did you work in their bullpen with like Chuck Dixon and everything? They all, did you work it?
It was a big office, and I inked over Sergio. I inked over oh my God, I'm blanking on his name, but he was our guy from Italy. I worked with Andy. But yeah, I was in a cubicle, so Chuck Dixon wasn't writing one of the books I worked on, but he was writing a couple of the books. We'd see Chuck all the time. Bart Sears. I worked in a cubicle right behind Andy.
How is that? Did you like that working?
It was awesome. It was awesome. It was there is difficulties when you take a bunch of comic book artists that are used to living at home and have their own social whatevers. We have our own little, there's a reason why we work at home in the first place. And then you shove us into one big office building together. There's always going to be conflicts with personalities and stuff. But it was awesome. You're going to work every day with your friends. You're going to work every day with a bunch of people that we all have the same thing in comic books. We love comic books. The downside of it was we all worked in comic books for Marvel and DC. So when we would see what the sales for CrossGen were, we knew that it was going to end. Every day we knew that something major would have to happen. Otherwise, the company would not be able to exist forever. So there was a morale problem, a big morale problem at CrossGen.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Back as a kid reading, Stan's Soapbox, and he's talking about the bullpen. Mm-hmm. I just imagined it was just like a school classroom, everybody at their desks, and Steve Ditko's over here, and Jack Kirby's over here, and John. Little did I know that ended in the 50s.
Well, we had our cubicles.
Yeah, but you guys had a bullpen. You had
we had Andy Smith was behind me penciling. I'm inking for a while before Bart Sears became the art director. I would look up to my left and Bart Sears is at his table drawing. Eventually that ended up being Jeff Johnson's spot, but I looked a little bit to the left where Jeff Johnson was sitting and Mike Attia was coloring at his computer.
How cool was that?
It was Andrea DeVito is who I initially inked at CrossGen. Andrea DeVito was like he was facing the my cubicle wall. He was just on the other side of my cubicle wall, and I was his inker. So it was fantastic. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
That's got to be cool. Like you hear those stories about the early Image days, like they're all hanging out and finishing each other's work, and it just sounded like it would be fun, especially they were all like 17, 18 years old, probably drinking their first beer, drawing a comic book together. That must have been awesome. Dude,
we would listen to Tony Bedard talk to his team, and they would literally brainstorm the like negation book 6-issue arc ahead. Like, hey, who has ideas? Tony would say, who has any ideas? What do you think about this? Would you think about that? And you're just like, that's exactly what the company was supposed to be, where the writer would work with his artists so that they would all be creating a project that they were excited about. Now I didn't have,
because the comics, do you think it was just bad timing, or because the comics were really good?
Two things. Bad timing, because the boss would run around saying, we're not a superheroes. We're not doing superheroes. While at Marvel, it was the resurgence of superheroes, because that's was Marvel had to show up their superhero comics, because they had already sold X-Men. They already had sold Spider-Man to Sony. All they had was like Captain America and Iron Man and the Avengers. So they had to push their superhero comic books to the forefront, because that was going to be what they made their movies from. They couldn't make the anti-hero Wolverine. They couldn't make a Wolverine movie because Fox had already bought the X-Men rights. So, and the bosses run around saying, we don't do superheroes, when Marvel and DC are making sure that they're pushing superheroes really hard and making superheroes super
what
cool.
We were talking at the beginning. You got to be a businessman first. I open up my pizzeria, I don't want to put pineapples on pizza, but if that's what the customers want, I guess I'm buying pineapples. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And Chuck also talked about it too. Chuck said they wouldn't cancel books. Chuck said that was the number one problem with CrossGen, is they wouldn't cancel books that were weak to make room for better books. So, I just bought Way of the Rat. I bought Ruse. That was really good. All of the CrossGen books that I have are outstanding. Those were all books later. Those were the books that the boss didn't come up with.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the books that the boss had the less influence the boss had in those books, the better the books were.
Yeah,
Like Way of the Rat was all Jeff Johnson and Chuck Dixon.
Yeah, they had them all tied together with the Sigilverse and stuff like.
Yeah,
you know, it's for a new company. I don't want everything interconnected, leading to it just sounds like company wide crossover. And I don't know about you, but since Secret Wars 2, I'm tired of company wide.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, all the books were linked together. Yeah.
Well, I know you've got to go.
Yeah, I got another show at 8:30, but man,
right.
I could talk to you for hours. You're just one of those guys. Before we even went live, I just said, "Hey, how you doing?" We just started. I said, "Let's go live. This is good stuff." We just like.
All right, man. I had a blast, and have a great night.
Yeah, come back whenever you.
Oh yeah, of course, definitely.
Don't wait another year. All right, but
all right, bye bye.
Stay tuned, guys. At 8:30, we're gonna have another comic book team up with Rini from Fiendish and RJ from Crom the Destroyer. See you, everybody. Bye bye.